So every hadith that the Prophet then said in the hadith when he stood in the people, ما بال أقوام, what is wrong with these people? يشترطون شروطا ليست في كتاب الله. They make conditions that are not in the book of Allah. You can see the difference here between the people who say every condition is invalid if it's not in the book of Allah, and the others say if it's contradict the book of Allah. Here the hadith says what is wrong with people who make conditions that are not in the book of Allah. Every condition that is not in the book of Allah is invalid, even if it's 100 condition. So that hadith, actually, the apparent understanding of that hadith is that these conditions are invalid, even if just by not being in the book of Allah, not necessarily contradicting the book of Allah. If you want to look at it also, there is some hadith that narrated by Tirmidhi and others that says المسلمون عند شروطهم, that the Muslims have to keep their conditions. Now this hadith is narrated by many different narrations. One that is considered to be a best narration here is the narration of Kathir ibn Zayd ibn Auf ibn Malik. Now Kathir ibn Zayd, Tirmidhi consider him to be okay, and Tirmidhi is easy when it comes to man. He is not very, like people say he is very easy, meaning that he consider people to be trustworthy just for it's like very, his condition is easy. He is not the only person. Also Bukhari consider this man to be fine, not the best, but just fine. However, contrary to this, to Bukhari and Tirmidhi, we have Ibn Hibban. Ibn Hibban say whatever he narrates, this is not here, is made up. All the hadith that he narrates are made up, not or like a lie. Shafi'i says about this man that he is ركن من أركان الكذب. He is a pillar of lies. Like he considered him to be a liar. He said it like this. And Ahmad bin Hanbal considered him to be very weak as well. So this hadith is da'if, weak. Kathir ibn Zayd. However, this man, the hadith that he narrated, at the end it says المسلمون عند شروطهم, that the Muslims have to keep their conditions, إلا شرطا أحل حراما أو حرم حلال, except a condition that makes halal haram or haram halal. And that will invalidate the whole argument, because everything when you make a condition, it's either it makes halal halal, and that is no problem because it is in the book of Allah, so, or when it makes haram haram, no problem, or it makes the opposite, make halal haram or haram halal. If a man marrying a woman and her condition is that he doesn't marry a second wife, that is, this man in some cases he doesn't have to marry a second wife. But as a condition, now it has made halal for him, haram for him what is halal. So that hadith, even those who use this hadith, that hadith actually doesn't help much.
So he says yes to her, he says yes.
Yes.
He doesn't have to just...
No, that is, it will be invalid. That's what some people say invalid, some people say it's not invalid. You have to apply it. You understand? That is the difference between what the Hanbalis say and what the Dahiris say, and the others, the Hanaf, they have a different approach. I mean, how they look at it.
Hanafis,
the Hanafis, yes. Now, that is the hadith of Aisha. We said that the Dahiris use. However, so we stopped. I think this is where we stopped last week.
معنى.
Yes, no, we didn't stop at the mania. Actually, we didn't complete. We didn't finish the conditions. We didn't finish with the condition.
So what's the conclusion?
The conclusion is the conclusion. You have to come to the conclusion yourself. Well, مقصوده, now he's explained himself what is the condition that is accepted, that is conditioned in the book of Allah, or it isn't in the book of Allah. So he says, والمقصود من كون الشرط في كتاب الله أو ليس فيه أن يكون مشروعا لا ممنوعا. So he takes here the opinion of the Hanbalis, and he says, what is, when the Prophet said any condition that is not in the book of Allah, he meant any condition that contradict the book of Allah. That's what the Hanbalis say. He say, so it's not, doesn't mean, he doesn't take it literally. He said, as long as it doesn't contradict the book of Allah, then it is in the book of Allah. However, this rule, whoever it is taken by, it is still the general rule, that is the madhab of Hanbalis. This is the madhab of the majority. Whoever has taken this opinion, they don't apply it. They have to make a difference here. They say we have to look at conditions. Any condition that doesn't contradict the book of Allah, this is how they put it. Any condition that doesn't contradict the book of Allah, then it's fine. It's not any condition that is not in the book of Allah. That is the opinion of the majority. Now, but when it comes to applying now, they say, but we have to look at the conditions now, and then they divide it, every madhab divide it in a different way now. For example, the majority say, as if the condition nullifies or it goes against the whole agreement, then it will be invalid. Such as someone buying a house.
Which one would be invalid? The whole deal or just...
No, that is a different matter. That we spoke about this last week, but we come to. Now they say if someone makes a condition, for example, someone buys a house. Okay, I buy a house with the condition that I will live in it. I sell you a house, but with the condition that you will be living in it. It's your property, I will sell it to you, but you will be living in it in the summer. Other times it will be mine. They say that has this condition here has contradicted the origin of the, someone buys something, it becomes his. Or I buy a house, I sell a house to someone and say you can buy it now, but you can't have it except after 100 years. Yeah, so you buy it now. Huh?
It will be dead after 100 years.
Yeah, his inheritors will take it. So they say if you make this condition, this will invalidate the whole. This is invalid. They say because it contradicts the core of the treaty, of the agreement. You understand? But then they don't give limits. If someone makes anyone who come to something and say this is right or this is wrong, generally, and then he try to when he brings his proofs, and then he say as long as it doesn't contradict, he has to make a rule, give a rule, clear rule, because if there is no clear rule, then okay, 100 years is haram. What about 50 years? What about 60? Give us a limit. If they don't put the limit, so he says this is the madhab of the Hanbalis. He says it is better because it looks at the masalih and mafasid. Looking at the masalih and the mafasid. This is what we call maqasid al-sharia. Maqasid al-sharia is something that the majority look. They say anything that the religion has forbidden is something that the harm in it is greater than the good. Anything that the religion has allowed is something which is the good in it, the benefits outweighs the harm. That is the opinion of the majority. However, the other people say that in the religion, it's Allah who makes decisions. There is no such thing as being hikmah, reason, good reason.
سد الذرائع from
Sadd al-Dhara'i, all the Sadd al-Dhara'i, it comes from there. Yeah, but one of the reasons is, but the thing is, this is how they say, look, Allah is Hakim, has most wise. He doesn't do anything without, we have spoken about this when we spoke about the asbab, the asbab and the illah. They say if Allah makes something haram, that is because it's harmful or it's not good for the people. And then they say we have to know the reason, and then from there we can do the qiyas, we can do the some people opposes that. They say no, whatever Allah does is because He wants to do it, and we don't have to ask questions trying to find the reason. They say it's haram because they say if you try to find the reason, you will have to ask a question. Why did Allah make this haram? They say that question is forbidden in the religion because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. He is not to be asked about what he does. So this is the now of course this person here follows the madhab that says that you can the religion is always looks at what the benefits and the harm. They take this ayah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about khamr, يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر قل فيهما إثم كبير ومنافع للناس. They ask you regarding the alcohol, intoxication, and the maisir, gambling. Say فيهما إثم كبير. Tell people that there is a lot of a big sin in them and benefit for people. However, the sin outweighs the benefits. The harm outweighs the good. And then they say, look, this is why the alcohol has been forbidden. And that for everything in the religion will be, if it's forbidden, is because the haram outweighs the halal, the good, the bad outweighs the good. The answer from those other group, they say, if this is the reason why Allah made it haram, then why it was halal all this time?
24 years.
Yes, for all these times that it was halal. They say why it was halal. So they say, and there are, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, سيقول السفهاء من الناس ما ولاهم عن قبلتهم التي كانوا عليها. The stupid amongst people will say why they have changed the qibla from the way they were, like they were praying to Bayt al-Maqdis, and then قل لله المشرق والمغرب يهدي من يشاء إلى صراط مستقيم وكذلك قل لله المشرق والمغرب يهدي من يشاء إلى صراط مستقيم وما جعلنا القبلة التي كنت عليها. We have not changed the qibla that you were following إلا لنعلم من يتبع الرسول ممن ينقلب على عقبيه. Allah gave one reason, is just because Allah wants to know, and He already knows, or make it as a reason to show who is going to follow the Prophet, who is not. Also, we have hadith of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas in Bukhari and Muslim that the Prophet said, "إن أعظم المسلمين جرما في الإسلام," that the biggest crime that a person commits in Islam, رجل سأل عن شيء فحرم من أجل مسألته, that someone asks about something that is not haram, and Allah makes it haram only because he asked. So there is no, the hikmah here, why this is haram, is because there is a hikmah behind it. Okay, Allah says that, the Prophet says that something that is not haram, and it becomes haram just because someone asked about it.
There's another hadith about the people destroyed before you.
Yeah. إنما أهلك الذين من قبلكم كثرة اختلافهم كثرة مسائلتهم واختلافهم على أنبيائهم. That is regarding asking. That is people behind you, before you. The people before you were destroyed because of the lot of questions that they ask and going against their prophets. That was a question and answer for a man that where the prophet said, Ya ayyuhan nas, inna Allah kataba alaykum al-hajja fahujju. Allah has ordered you to do hajj, then do hajj. A man asked every year, he said, leave me as long as I leave you. So if he says something, you take it the way he said it. Because if you ask a question, what about this? He said, don't ask that question. So he says, the madhab of the Ahnaf now, he has spoken about the Hanbalis, that is their madhab. Now he speaks about the Ahnaf. He said the madhab of the Ahnaf is closer to the madhab of the Hanbalis. However, they said that the conditions are three. A condition which is sahih, that is doesn't contradict the Quran and Sunnah, and shartun fasid and shartun batil. They said a condition which is batil and condition which is fasid. And this is very tricky to say it in English, because I don't know. I would have both of them said invalid, fasid, and this is the madhab of the Jamhur. If it's not sahih, it's invalid. That is the madhab of the Dahiris, Hanbalis, Shafi'is, and Malikis. If it's not right, is wrong. That's invalid altogether. However, the madhab of the Hanaf, there is a condition which is valid, there is condition which is invalid, and there is a condition, the condition that are not accepted, one is called invalid and one is called fasid, wrong. So one invalid and one wrong. And they say there is a difference between fasid and batil. They say the fasid, which is the wrong, is something that there is benefit in it. However, it can't be. There is benefit in it. However, it contradicts the valid or the sahih. So the fasid is rejected altogether.
What's the example for the fasid?
The fasid will be example of marriage.
Okay.
The witnesses are required. لا نكاح إلا بولي وشاهدي عدل. So the two witnesses, according to the Ahnaf, are conditions. Not to have two witnesses, they say this aqd will be no. There is the aqd will be what we call sahih.
Okay.
But the witnesses, but because there is no witnesses, this aqd will be it's haram not to have witnesses. But the aqd will be sahih anyway. The other one is for the batil. We say someone majnoon, crazy, selling his property.
Yeah.
They say the whole aqd is invalid.
The whole agreement.
Yes, the whole agreement is invalid. The whole agreement, because there is a difference thing here, that whether the agreement, sometimes they speak about the agreement and the conditions, and we have spoken about this last week. So I just leave it because we have spoken about it last week, and probably we can talk if we finish, because we are supposed to start the mani'. And we will come back. He says about the batil, the Ahnaf always give these two examples about fasid and batil. When they speak about it, they give the two. This is their examples. However, you can't see much the difference. However, they can see it, so you have to give the example that they give. They give about crazy selling his property. So the property has to come back, because, or someone who get married but there is no witnesses. They say this aqd is fasid. You understand? So what happens when the aqd is fasid? They say the children will be called to their father. Because when someone marries and the marriage is invalid, then the whole marriage, it's like didn't exist. So the children will become the children of their mother only. The man is not in.
So,
That is how. So they say, but here there is mahr. Mahr has to be given everything. They have to do the marriage again. They have to repair it. They have to. But whatever happened within that marriage, like the results of the marriage, has to be taken into consideration. That is the difference between the batil and the fasid. But he says here. So they say batil فليس مما يصح العقد به. So the عقد will be not صحيح. So it is not sahih, but there is difference between fasid and batil. He said, but and he has to. He says like he is like talking extra, لغو, batil. We say batil is not haram, so they say that is batil. It's like laghu. Whatever you have said is invalid. But we are coming back into details, talking about what is batil again, after we have spoken about the mani'. Now, when the condition, when you make a aqd, we said before that when you have a treaty, when you have an agreement, then this agreement, if you include a condition which is valid or invalid, then there is two different opinions. The opinions that is of the majority, including the Dahiris. That is the opinion of the four madhabs, including the Dahiris, that if you make a condition within this what we call agreement, the contract agreement, then the condition will be invalid. Now, it depends on what condition. Some people make some conditions valid, then some people make some conditions not valid. But they all agree if the condition is invalid, except for some Dahiris such as Ibn Hazm, they say the agreement generally will be right. The condition will be invalid. Generally. Yeah. Now when we say the condition that people make, that include in the... However, Ibn Hazm and some others will say...
So the majority of the Dahiris, they say like the Hanbalis.
They say like the four madhab.
But Hazm in particular.
Ibn Hazm and some other Dahiris, they say the whole contract is invalid. Like he says, if a woman marry a man and she say, you are not going to marry another person, he said the whole marriage is invalid.
Why did that cause made the haram?
No. He says because he made a condition. They are making an agreement, and that agreement, like based on something that is invalid. So how can it be valid? The whole thing will be invalid.
Yeah.
If you put the hadith of Aisha to him, you tell him, look, Aisha said to the Prophet that these people are asking for a condition. He said, doesn't matter, give them the condition, what they ask for. You say, how can he say that if you tell him this question? So the Prophet is telling her the condition is invalid. Give them the condition. So he's ordering her to buy something which is invalid. It will not be. It's like the whole agreement is invalid. So he is ordering her to do something which is altogether invalid. How? She took the slave. She bought the slave. She took her. Only the condition was not invalid. Was invalid. He said he will. His answer is the Prophet said that to Aisha, and then he went out and said afterwards, any condition that is not in the book of Allah is invalid. So like this came later. You understand?
We don't know when it came.
The truth is, if this came later, why did he tell her? Give them what they want? It's like still he told her first that doesn't matter whether you give it without not. You understand? Yes, and he says that there is nothing clear in the hadith that Aisha, when she done that, like the Prophet went out to the mosque and said that he doesn't say how long there was the period, if it was in that minute or maybe later. He said it, not in that exact moment, so maybe later, few days maybe. So that is his argument. However, what he says here is strong. It is difficult to accept it because of the. However, it is strong. You can't just, especially that all those who say that the condition itself, the majority will nullify many agreements, such as someone marrying a woman for a period of time, someone marrying a woman for a week. They don't say, okay, we don't consider the condition is invalid and the marriage is valid. They will say the whole marriage is invalid. Understand? They will say someone marrying someone else's daughter with the condition that he marries his daughter, for example. They say this whole marriage is invalid. So that is why this is a very delicate issue.
The strong opinion is we go back to the same thing. Every condition that is not from Allah is invalid.
No, that is definitely that is clearly the hadith is clear in that. Now, whether the condition itself only is invalid or the whole agreement is invalid, that is a different matter. You understand? However, you have to make to see the difference between the agreement. There is a difference between what the agreement at the time of the agreement. You see, if someone wants to marry a woman, for example, and he made the conditions. They discussed, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do that. But at the time, and they agreed, and then they started making the agreement. That is what we look at. We don't look what we have discussing before. That will not has any effect, because the agreement is the one at the time when the agreement. I mean, if someone says to a woman, I'm going to marry you, and the father is there and they say, yeah, fine, we will give you my daughter, inshallah, and that is not agreement. He's not married. The agreement is when it's done. So at that time when the agreement is done, if they don't mention, they agreed about a lot of things, but they have not mentioned them during the marriage, that even nothing, that is just talk.
So again, just need to get that bit about regarding if the whole thing is invalid. So if they make a condition, does that make the whole thing invalid?
Well, that is, I told you, that is what Ibn Hazm says. However, we can talk about this in details another time. I might not give you an answer. I just tell you what is the strongest opinion. But we have to go into details because there is a lot of argument here.